Welcome to Fantasy Quick Hits with Casey Smith. I'm your host, Millsy.
And I'm Casey.
How we doing today, Casey?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just getting ready for the football weekend coming up. We got a game tomorrow.
You've been in the lab working hard.
Yeah, I've been putting in the work the last couple of days, getting all the stats together and everything.
Well, let's get it. This is a new little fantasy segment we got for everybody. Short and sweet, to the point, nothing crazy. So with that being said, let's jump right into this bad boy. And first, we're gonna go over. We picked three games that we want to talk about some fantasy players from. And the first is the Tampa Bay-Atlanta game. It's got the highest over under on the slate, 51.5. Do you have anybody in this game that you like, you don't like?
I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the Falcons passing offenses I like this week, especially against the Bucs, who are giving up the most points to, I guess, just everyone, basically, fully in the secondary. Not running backs, but wide receivers and quarterbacks are just tearing up the Bucs secondary. They can't stop anyone. So I'm expecting a big game from Matt Ryan, a big game from Julio, and probably a big game from Calvin Ridley, too. And I can see Matt Ryan throwing for over 300 yards, definitely.
That's a DraftKings play right there, too, because you get the 300-point bonus. Just wanted to throw that in there.
And then for the Bucs, actually, I like Jameis again, too, because it's definitely going to be a high-scoring game. They don't really have anything they can do running the ball with Peyton Barber and my man Ronald Jones, not too good. So they're going to have to pass the ball. And I like Mike Evans, too, just because Falcons can't stop anyone in the secondary either. I mean, honestly, Chris Godwin will probably be a good play. My sleeper this week is Cameron Brate, because O.J. Howard getting benched last week. I think you got to watch out. Keep an eye on that. He might be taking over the role. And he had 10 targets last week. I think he had 8 catches it was. So, yeah, that could be a potential sleeper for this week. Watch out for him.
I like that. Yeah, Brate kind of came out of nowhere last week. I just want to ask you real quick. Chris Godwin or Mike Evans? Which one do you like more this week?
I think I'm going to go Mike Evans, just because I don't think anyone on the Falcons can stop him unless they double him up. But I don't know if they're going to, because they don't really like to do that much. So, yeah, I think Mike Evans is going to go for 100 yards and a touchdown, I'd say.
I sure hope so. I need it. I have him on my fantasy team, so that'd be great for me. We're going to move on to Carolina, New Orleans with a 47 over-under. What do you think about this game?
Well, for the Panthers, I'm liking DJ Moore, actually, with Lattimore out. He's been seeing a lot of targets lately. He saw, I think it was 10 last week, at least 10. And he's constantly getting the ball thrown to him, especially they're going to have to score at the Saints. And the only way that the Saints are giving up the most points in their secondary. So I think that he's going to have a big game. However, I don't think that Greg Olsen's going to have a big game this week. The Saints have been giving up only 5.8 fantasy points to tight ends since 2017. So I don't think there's going to be a good game from him.
Right there, that means to avoid him. As soon as you said that, Daisy got up and walked past. I'm sure you heard her nails prancing. So that means fade Greg Olsen this week.
I'm also going to say fade Jared Cook, too, on the other side. Panthers are 28th this year in allowing tight end fantasy points. So another play that I wouldn't take. I do like Kamara, though. Last few weeks, Panthers have been giving up, I think, top 5 numbers against running backs. So I think he's going to get a bunch of catches and probably get in the end zone this one.
So fire up Kamara with confidence.
But yeah, definitely.
The Seattle-Philadelphia game with an over-under of 48. What do you like in this game?
I think you definitely got to start Russell Wilson. I think he's going to pop off, because I don't think actually Seahawks are going to have much of a running game. I'm going to actually fade Chris Carson this week just because of that Eagles defensive front. It's going to make him pretty hard. I can see him maybe the most 70 yards, potentially getting in the end zone if he gets a goal line look or two, but I would fade him besides that. And on the other side, I like Zach Ertz this week. They're going to have to throw the ball somewhere, and Seahawks have been pretty solid outside the middle of the field where they have been taken advantage of this year. So expect a big game from Ertz potentially. And Don't really like the Eagles running backs this week. I think it's going to be more of a throwing game. But if I had to pick anyone, I'd say Miles Sanders is the go-to start because he's going to be the one getting receptions, if anything. So I
Like you
think,
said, working that middle of the field, that's where Sanders will do his damage in the middle of the field.
yeah, exactly.
All right, next up we have over under. I'm going to read you a player and the projected fantasy points, and you tell me if they hit the over or they hit under that.
All right, sounds good.
We're going to start out in New England. Tough matchup for Dak Prescott. Have him at 19 fantasy points.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under here. I'm pretty sure besides Lamar Jackson, Patriots haven't given up 19 fantasy points to any quarterback this year. So, and especially because they're playing at Gillette, I'm definitely going to take the under here.
Aaron Jones at San Francisco, 15 fantasy points.
I'm going to take the under here as well. The Niners D has been surprisingly amazing this year. They're averaging around 25 rushing yards a game, which is great. I mean, amazing. And I just think that at San Francisco, they're going to stop Aaron Jones early, potentially go up, and then have to throw the ball end of the game. So I can see Jamal Williams getting some catches too, being involved. So I'm going to go with the under here for Aaron Jones this week.
Cooper Kupp versus Baltimore, the Monday night game, 14 fantasy points.
You know, this was a really hard one for me. I didn't really know what to do here because I really see him getting probably around 14, I think. I'm going to go with the over, though. I mean, I think the Baltimore defense has been playing amazing this year, or at least the last couple weeks after they brought in Marcus Peters and they got, what's his name, Jimmy Smith back healthy. I was going to say, of course, Cooper Kupp could be force-fed by Goff if they get into a game where they're down, because I could see definitely the Ravens going up on the Rams. I don't know. I just think the Ravens have been clicking on all cylinders this year. So I think that since the Rams will be playing from behind, that Cooper Kupp could potentially see a lot of targets.
And coming out of the slot, they move them all over the formation.
Yeah, exactly. So. He won't just be on the outside.
Devontae Adams at San Francisco, 16 fantasy points.
I think I'm going to take the under here again.
Ooh.
He's coming into the week, limited practices. He's a little hurt. And, again, he's going against one of the best defenses in the league. I think that if the Packers are going to win this game, they're going to have to be without their main contributors. I don't think there's going to be big games from Adams and Jones, but I still think they could pull it out with the help of their supporting cast and their defense.
I think that game's going to be a defensive battle.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Carson at Philly, 13 fantasy points.
I faded them before, so I'm going to say the under here, too. I just think Philly has one of the best fronts. They're playing away. And I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I think it's going to be mostly passing because of the two good fronts on each side.
And finally, Lamar Jackson at the Rams, 22 fantasy points.
I'm going to go the over here with Lamar.
Ooh.
A little bit because I have him myself, so I'm hoping so. But no, I think that he's actually going to. I think that the Rams are going to play some hard run D, so force Lamar to pass the ball. And I think that it's going to force some broken plays, which is exactly what Lamar Jackson wants, I think. So I think he'll be able to put up 22 points.
Thriving in that organized chaos.
With all that rushing yards, too, they add up. And he only needs to throw for his 200 and a touchdown and have, 60, 70 rushing yards. And
a touchdown.
Close there.
All right, so that's it for the over-unders. Now we're gonna jump to start or sit. I'm gonna throw some names at you, and you let me know whether you're starting them or you're sitting them this week. And we're gonna stay in LA, and we're gonna go with Hollywood Brown. You starting them or sitting them?
I see him as a wide receiver 3 with upside this week, so I would definitely start him in a game. I mean, it could potentially be high scoring, 2 pretty decent offenses. And there's always the chance for Hollywood Brown to hit like a 50, 60-yard touchdown. So I would definitely start him.
Quarterback, Carson Wentz versus Seattle.
Yeah, again, I would start Carson Wentz this week. I think that he's going to have to throw the ball against Seattle. I can see him putting up between 15 and 20 points at least, so as his floor against them. So, yes, I would definitely start him.
Amari Cooper at New England.
I would actually sit Amari this week just because he's coming off a terrible game. He's dealing with a lot of injuries on the road, and he's also dealing with one of the best corners in the game in Stephon Gilmore. So I'd probably stay away from him, even though I could see him potentially, them going down, him getting fed some targets, but I still think that he won't have a good week.
I agree there. And Stephon Gilmore is the best corner in the league.
He is.
Todd Gurley versus Baltimore. You starting him or sitting him?
I'm actually starting Todd Gurley this week just because I think that they might not be able to run the ball good, but I think that they'll get he can get a lot of receptions underneath. That could be good for the half-point PPR. So I would start him. I could see him hitting his projections for sure.
DJ Chark versus Tennessee.
I'd start him too. He's coming out. It looks like one of Nick Foles' favorite targets so far. He has all of his touchdowns this year. So, and with that Tennessee secondary hurting some, I could see him definitely getting a good amount of targets this week.
We've seen that chemistry between him and Foles so far. Foles' touchdowns have only gone to Chark.
Yeah, it's at 3, right?
Yeah, 2 last week and 1 in week 1. You starting or sitting Devin Singletary versus Denver?
I would start him as probably an RB3 or a flex option. I just think Denver's got a pretty solid defense, pretty good run D. But I think that if they're going to be a close game, they're going to have Singletary in there to catch some passes. I don't think Frank Gore really sees the field that much this week, so I could see Devin Singletary getting a good amount of touches, and all he needs is one touch to make a big impact. So,
and he's kind of taking a stranglehold of that backfield now.
Yeah, he's starting to now.
Sony Michel versus Dallas. You starting him or sitting him?
I actually think this could be a good Sony Michel week in a game against Dallas at home. I mean, Dallas did give up 4 touchdowns to Aaron Jones at the beginning of the season, so they don't have the best run D. So I could see him definitely getting a lot of carries this game.
Start or sit Sam Darnold versus Oakland?
I'm going to say yes, please start Sam Darnold if you're looking for a quarterback this week because he's got a mouth-watering matchup against the Raiders right now. It was one of the worst secondaries in the league, too.
And again, that West Coast, West Coast team coming to eat.
They're going to be tired coming in from Oakland, so I can see a sluggish secondary getting thrown on by Sam Darnold.
Starting or sitting Cortland Sutton versus Buffalo?
I'm going to sit him this week because I just think that at Buffalo he's going to have Tre'Davious White on him, one of the best corners in the league. Not the best, though.
I just want to explain this one real quick because I know people were probably saying Cortland Sutton. Why would you? I thought you would sit him last week against Xavier Rhodes, but he went out and he had a big game. So I just wanted to clarify on that front.
Oh, it's okay.
And the last is going to be you starting or sitting Jimmy G this week versus Green Bay?
I'm going to sit Jimmy G this week. I just think there's potential there. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And I think that the Packers don't have the best run D, so if they're going to get taken advantage of, it's going to be running the ball. I could see the 49ers pounding it. It's going to be a defensive game. I mean, Jimmy G, I could see him getting – I mean, he could get 20 points, but honestly, I think that's the limit, the most he could see this week. So
sit Jimmy G. All right, so that wraps up the Fantasy Quick Hits with Casey Smith. We'll be back next week. Casey, thank you.
No problem. It's a pleasure being here, and I can't wait to be back next week. Hopefully my picks just hold up this week and I don't look like a clown.
Well, this is a tough week. There's a lot of low-scoring games, a lot of tough matchups. So we'll see how you do, and we'll definitely be back next week.